Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined as always by my co-host, Jacob Boyers. Cats have found a way to get to Friday of the SEC tournament, taking down the Missouri Tigers 78-72. A game in which the entire first, 30 minutes, the Cats were in complete control of, got a lead that was as big as 16 in this one. And just as always, just as the season has always been told, a roller coaster started going downhill very quickly. Missouri ended up taking the lead, but ultimately the Cats fought off Missouri's comeback attempts, win it 78-72, advance to Friday of the SEC tournament, and they will have their third attempt to beat the Florida Gators. Jacob, I know you were trying to tag along with this game. You had some big guy responsibilities you had to take care of, but anything you want to talk to about this game in particular that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch vast majority of it. It was on my phone, but we made it. No, I thought, honestly, like you said, 30-ish minutes, Kentucky played excellent. And based off of yesterday where they came out and had to win the game offensively, their defense played really, really well. Outside of nobody could guard Mark Mitchell for a stretch of about 10 minutes there. But that was something we talked about that could have happened. You asked me yesterday, how does Kentucky lose? And I said it would be Mark Mitchell getting insanely hot, and they were essentially able to overcome that. And I thought, really, there were guys that didn't play well in certain stretches, but I think, honestly, outside of like Jasper, I think every single player on this team made plays at some point that kind of helped you get to a win. And I know we'll talk about them individually, but Otega and Denzel obviously down the stretch, Colin making a big three and having some big steals. Diabate at times it looked like he couldn't be on the floor, but then he also grabbed some huge rebounds and had some good takes. So I thought everybody, for the most part, played pretty well for Kentucky. And, you blew the 16-point lead, but like we talked about yesterday, man, this is the time of year where it doesn't matter how you win, just get wins.
Yeah, I want to talk to Missouri a little bit first before we dive into what the Cats did in this game. And it really all started when Sean Phillips came back in after that early foul trouble that he had.
Yep.
That really allowed Mark Mitchell to get going. Phillips, I think he scored back-to-back buckets, and then it was just the Mark Mitchell show. Mitchell only had 12 points on his first 12 shot attempts, which I will sign up for that each day of the week when one of their better players is a big going against our bigs. And then after that, he had 20 points on his last 9 attempts. So he really, really started getting going, and he was efficient from the floor. And that's what led Missouri to be able to come back in that. But Jake, I was a little confused at the strategy we were running at Mark Mitchell. We threw a lot of looks at him, but the looks were really just Brandon Garrison and Mohamed Diabate. It seemed like there was real no effort to maybe allow Malachi Moreno to try and slow him down. Even Yelovich kind of had some success with him early in the first half. Are you surprised that we allowed him to? Because against Mohamed in specific, he was just able to get the shots over top of him. Mo was in good spots for most of those. And then for Brandon Garrison, he ended up getting 4 blocks in this game, but Mitchell was just too fast for him in spots. And then Phillips was just too big for him. So this is a game where I'm not going to say BG struggled because I think he played a good role, especially coming off of yesterday. You would have thought Brandon was going to shoot, 10 times today?
BG time.
he didn't do that, but are you at all concerned of seeing how these bigs created a mismatch for us, and especially considering we have to play against Florida, who's got 3 guys who can do that at any time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different because I think the way Mark Mitchell, I mean, some of those jump shots, you kind of alluded to it, some of them were just tough shots he was hitting, those turnarounds with either Mo kind of right in his face, but Mo didn't have necessarily the size to be there. And then to your point, BG, I just don't think was quick enough. I was screaming for a while, like, send a double team at him. I would have been try to make somebody else
Mhm.
beat you kind of in that situation. And they didn't until really like the last minute. And, you saw Otega get the steal. They got the stop the possession before where they kind of sent a double team at him and he had to get rid of the ball. Um, so I mean they waited until essentially quote unquote crunch time to do it. I would have preferred when Mark Mitchell was on that tear, you try to do it a little earlier and get him out of
Yeah,
rhythm a little bit. But
yeah.
um, yeah, I think he's a tough matchup because, like you said, I don't think BG's quick enough, um, and then Mo just doesn't have the size. Maybe you could have thrown Malachi at him, but especially when Phillips is in there, you see what he can do around the rim. Um, but at the end of the day, man, they found a way to get two stops on him when it mattered the most, and were able to put the game away.
And that's something that we really haven't been able to do as of late, is get those key stops down the
Yep.
stretch and when you need them. That was something, if you remember last year's team, like the Duke game obviously stands out. There were
I
certain
was about to
games throughout
say
the
that
season.
steal from Otega reminded me a lot of the Duke game. It was kind of clear what Mitchell wanted to do, just like it was clear that you know last year Flag wanted to make that spin, and Otega just put himself in perfect position.
Yeah, and it's good to see, especially in tournament time with teams that you've faced before, and learning from mistakes you made earlier in the season. And it felt like that was something that Kentucky did because they found themselves in a very similar spot. Big lead, come back, Missouri's all of a sudden leading this game. You could have crumpled. You could have, let the moment shine, and unfortunately you not be the victors at the end. I'm just impressed with the resiliency of this team because going up 16, then falling down with Mitchell being as hot as he was, and it was there for a while where he was just throwing things at the rim and they were just falling in
Yep.
somehow. And you had a banked three at some point in their comeback, and our history with bank threes. If there's
That
a if
was
there's a
that was
bank
the first
three,
moment I got
that's
nervous.
yeah. I saw that. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This is a part of the comeback for Missouri. But to these guys' credit, they found ways to capitalize down the stretch, unlike early in the season against Missouri. And that's something that Otega and the guys after the game mentioned too. They found themselves in a similar spot. This time they were able to capitalize. And I think it does give these guys a lot of confidence going forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned them making plays, even when Missouri kind of went on the run and took the lead. One thing that I think was pretty different from what we've seen earlier in the season when they've kind of had those moments, whether it was Missouri or whatever other games. Man, their body language didn't change one time today.
Mm-hmm.
They stayed composed. They stayed poised. I think it really that kind of goes back to what we've talked about with Denzel being, stepping into that true point guard role. Like he kind of kept. I feel like he's the difference that kind of kept everybody level, and he goes out and makes two big free throws that gives Kentucky the lead back, and everybody just kind of settled back down and settled right back into the game.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and hit on what Denzel brought to you in this game because definitely wasn't efficient from the floor. 4 of 12. Jake, I'm starting to get a little concerned about that 3-point shot. He threw up another one today that, if it wasn't for Yelovich's first 3-point attempt, might have been the worst one I'd seen all game. But the free throw shooting down the stretch, 6 of 6 in the second half from the free throw line. You mentioned how big some of them were. And he's getting to his spots right now, and he's making plays for teammates. He had
Yep.
7 assists in this game as well. And I know you look at it, 4 of 12, you end up getting 16 points. I could see how you're like, oh man, he doesn't deserve I don't say shine that we're giving him, but he's not as big of a focal point as we're making it out to be. But when you're talking about how long we searched for a true point guard this season and how far he's come, I think what Denzel's doing for this team, and I'm hoping that the shot making is going to start to come, and hopefully he can get off the snide against Florida 2 bad games against Florida. Hopefully on Friday he can kind of revenge that and finally beat his former team. I'm not sure outside of the shot making I can ask more than what we're getting
No.
from Denzel Aberdeen because he's being such a leader on the floor. He's making plays for teammates. And I mean, I think I'm going to say, and we laughed at it early in the season, he is the leader of this team.
Yep. I would agree. Yeah, he's getting there, especially like I said, just his composure there as Kentucky lead completely dwindled away. He stayed poised and made countless big plays. I'll say, man, he's becoming, and he obviously did it in a huge point of this game, but he's done it multiple times this year. Late in the shot clock, he is so in control and knows exactly how much time he's got and can make the right play. I mean, so many times there's 3 seconds left and he's catching it in a tough spot behind the arc. And I think everybody's kind of just screaming, shoot, 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 you got to shoot. And he finds a way to make those 3 seconds feel like they're the longest 3 seconds in the world and get to the spot that he needs to get the ball off in time. It's, just about anybody else would have forced that three there right when the ball got swung to him there. And he found a way to get to the rim and probably honestly should have been an and one, but regardless, essentially put the game away in that situation. His just kind of composure in those moments, I think, is maybe one of the best we've seen here at this school because he's done it multiple times in multiple games and not just big moments, but anytime the shot clock kind of dwindles down, he finds his way to get a good high quality look.
Yeah, and he's playing in control. And there for the longest part of the season, we really didn't have a guy who you could get the ball to and they were going to play
Yep.
with that confidence. And you mentioned the composure. And I think that's something that is a big reason why you look at a game like this against Missouri and you look at the matchup we had with them earlier in the season. And I think there's the big difference right there.
Yep.
You have someone who has that composure down the stretch, hits shots at the free throw line, makes contested drives, finds open teammates. His growth in a lot of ways, I think, shows you the difference from the team early January to now you have them in mid March. There's still things that frustrate you and I with this team, and I'm sure we'll get into some of them. But Jake, I told you if Kentucky won on Wednesday, what I was going to do. And I want to wait till the end to do it. I'm not going to say it yet. You know what I'm thinking. I already want to get there. But let's go ahead and talk about Otega Oweh because first half, I'm not sure if we've seen Otega play. I don't want to say play worse because he's definitely had halves where he's just not been involved. 3 of 8, had a turnover in there, really wasn't giving you much, especially considering, that starting lineup was running out and getting on Missouri early. Shot some bad threes in there, but then the second half just completely flipped the narrative of the game that he had. Went efficient, 6 of 10, knocked down 2 threes, got you 2 assists, a nice little steal in there as well. And you mentioned how important that steal was on Mark Mitchell when he got it. Can we just get that from both halves for Otega? I know it's a lot to ask going 6 of 10 in both halves, but man, just more of the decision making because it seems like when you get into that crunch time, that crunch spot, when it matters a little bit more, Otega makes the right decision for his team. It seems like early in the game, I don't want to say stat padding because I'm not sure that's what he's doing, but it seems like it's more of a selfish mentality earlier in the game to kind of like get himself going. Whereas in the second half, it seems like, all right, let's play to get the win. And I'm hoping that, especially against Florida, he's going to be able to play like that both halves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the first half was a good performance by him, but I don't know if it's necessarily as bad as you thought. I think Missouri had a really good game plan, especially defensively, right? They were pressing pretty much getting by the time Kentucky got the ball past half court, you're down to 24, 23 seconds on the shot clock. And then they kept kind of mixing those zones. It would be a 2-3 into a 1-3-1 and like just throwing a bunch of different looks at Kentucky to where they really couldn't get into a rhythm offensively. I mean, even the baskets they scored early were usually out in transition off of turnovers. I thought Missouri had a really, really good game plan for Kentucky offensively and kind of were trying to slow that game down and muck it up. And I mean, I think two of those threes Otega took were very end of the shot clock where you almost had to force something. But then in the second half, I thought Kentucky did a better job of handling Missouri's press, getting into their offense earlier in the shot clock and being able to really get that movement. They finally started kind of throwing the ball into the middle of the paint and, working from there. So I don't know. I don't know why it really took us to the second half to figure that out. That's pretty clear that that's what Missouri does. They've done it to every team they played this year. So maybe it wasn't the best, whatever you want to call it, game plan or whatever. But I think Missouri did a really good job defensively, and Kentucky definitely, I think, as a team, completely struggled in the half court. And that's where you kind of see those 3 of 8 performances from Otega is when this team as a whole is just kind of struggling. I think there are those times we've talked about it where they can't get a bucket in the half court, and he almost feels like he's got to be the guy to go do it.
Yeah, and the halves offensively weren't so different just from we had 38 points in the first half, 40 in the second, 48.4 shooting in the first half to 50 in the second. But we got so many more shots in the first half. Shot 31 attempts in the first half, only got up 24 in the second. A lot of those is because, we were getting downhill and Otega and Denzel were getting fouled a good amount in that second half. I don't know where the attacking mentality was in that first half. You were getting a lot of shots, and I think they were letting them play a little bit more physical early on. I think there were some calls that could have been called, and we've seen these SEC refs so far just letting them play around the rim. And it's something you alluded to when we talked about the Missouri game, and that's why a lot of SEC teams struggle when you get to the NCAA tournament because we end up fouling a lot.
Yep.
And we end up finishing 7 of 10 on layups, but it feels like around the rim we're still not. I don't know what it is. This is purely just vibes based. It was 7 of 10 in the first half on layups, and then the second half you went 7 of 10 as well. So I mean, you did the exact same thing half to half. Whatever reason, I don't know if it's just how it feels because they're point blank layups, like the one that Malachi missed.
I was about to say, we have to have the most 7-footers that miss dunks of any team in the country.
And it's Malachi, he probably blows at least one of those a game. At least it feels like the past couple.
And then there's always PG does.
And then there's always one for Otega to where he'll get annihilated and convert the and one, and then the very next trip down, he's going to smoke open layup, and he did it in this game as well. I'm not going to complain when you have 37 points from Denzel and Otega. They played well. I wish Denzel was a little bit more efficient from the floor. I think we got to get to Colin Chandler because you texted me during the game, is Colin back? I'm hoping so because 15 points on, again, only 6 shot attempts. I'd like for him to get more shot attempts, but this game kind of played, I would say, more into Missouri's style of basketball that they wanted to play. They kind of controlled the tempo and controlled the pace. We didn't get as many shots as I think we would have wanted, only 55 shot attempts. Colin only got 6. I'd like to see him have more, but 3 steals as well that were huge. Tough finishes, 2 dunks that he had as well, and knocked down 2 threes. Is Colin back? I heard somebody giving out some stats about him wearing a undershirt versus when he's not wearing an undershirt. And there's some stats there that say if he doesn't wear the undershirt, he's cooking. If he wears an undershirt, he's not cooking. So maybe before we put in those money line bets against Florida, we just got to see what Colin walks out of the tunnel with.
Yeah, it felt good to kind of see him have that confidence again. I mean, that that three that he hit in the second half was obviously huge. The way he celebrated it after almost told me as much. That's when I texted you and said, like, is he back? It wasn't just the make, but like you could see what it meant to him. I mean, he hit the Jamal Murray arrow and let out a
Yeah.
huge yell, and it's like just to kind of see him back in that confidence from opposed to what we saw the last 4 games since Vandy, like it was night and day. And I'm with you. I'd like some more shots, but what the 3 guards combined for 52 points. I know we say we need them around 60, but you're kind of right there. And this is back to kind of the blueprint of like you can see how this team can be good. And I text you during the game and said something to the effect of, I know this is probably going to come back to bite me, but like I'm starting to believe again, right? Like
It definitely will, man.
there's
Belief always kills us.
those little glimpses of just where you can kind of see how this team can be good. And you know, I think you hit it when you said like this game definitely played to the way Missouri wanted to play. I think if you take a lot of these stats and the numbers from the game and you tell Dennis Gates before the game, here's what it's going to be, he's going to feel really good about Missouri's opportunity. And to Kentucky's credit, even with all of that, they found a way to win. And that's something we talked about after the LSU game is like in the postseason, you have to win different ways. Not every game, unless you're an elite level team like, UConn 2 years ago, like where you're just blowing everybody out, you're going to have to find different ways to win every game. You even saw it last year with Florida, right? Like there were a lot of close games that were different styles of play, but you just have to make the plays down the stretch to go win. And, I get it. It was LSU, a team that won 3 games in the conference, and then a, potentially last 4 in or
Yeah.
last 4 by team in Missouri. But you've found ways to win games that you needed to win, essentially, and that's both completely different styles, but you were able to pull them both out.
The biggest thing I think, and you mentioned kind of like if you just gave this stat sheet to Dennis Gates, he'd feel really good about where his team stood. But the amount of times Kentucky was able to turn over Missouri
Yep.
was incredible, and that's something we just haven't had. You'd have usually an occasional Otega pick six or Colin would get into a passing lane, but outside of them, there just really wouldn't be too many turnovers forced. And to force 15 of them, Colin to have 3 steals, Otega 2, Denzel 2, Yelovich gets you 1, even Jasper finds a way to make a
Yep.
defensive play. It was huge. And this is something that Pope alluded to earlier in the season, talking about we just don't give ourselves too many extra opportunities. And when you turn a team over 15 times, and that's where we are our best, is when we're downhill in transition. Like you saw how Jasper lobs it up to Otega, he gets a finish. Colin has 2 finishes as well. It's just so when we play our best. And I don't think Missouri's guards are anything to write home about. And I'm not sure if this is something you're going to be able to do to Boogie Flanders, Avon Lee, if you're going to be able to speed them up in the way in which you were able to Missouri. But if it is, this is something that could be game changing for this team going forward. Because just think about all those buckets that we got off of turnovers and how much that plays a huge impact in this game. They had 17 points off of turnovers in this one compared to Missouri's 13. You end up winning by 6, and that was 4 of the point difference right there. It's huge. And you create 15 turnovers every game, there's a good chance you're going to win a lot of these games.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, like a lot of games Kentucky doesn't kind of take advantage of those opportunities. It's either we don't come up with the loose ball after, kind of a really good. How many times does it feel like we play great defense, even kind of knock the ball loose with 4 seconds left on the shot clock, and we just don't come up with the ball, and the other team picks it up and hits a shot.
Throws it at the rim somehow, and it bounces in.
Or you get a steal, and then we come down and like blow the layup. Like those things happen all the time. Today they converted those opportunities.
Still happened a little bit today. Like Colin had that pick six opportunity, slipped and fell, and then
Yeah,
Otega
like
went with a
that. I
quick
think that
put
was a
back.
little bit of
It's
just bad luck.
yeah,
But like,
it still happened a little bit, but to your point, like
yeah.
it's happening fewer and far between.
But like in this game, you see, like, I mean, that's obviously the difference in the game. You only turn the ball over 9 times, turn them over 15, but you also it's Cal used to talk about it all the time, like how there's different levels of turnovers, like throwing the ball out of bounds that stops the game versus a guy getting a pick six that leads to a run out. Like Kentucky, I think, did a really good job of converting those opportunities and making the turnovers that Missouri had critical turnovers, and it wasn't just a team that wants to press. How do you keep them out of the press? Well, you turn them over and you play fast, and I think Kentucky did a really good job of that. And again, I'm just going to continue to say it, but converting those opportunities, that's something that sounds fairly easy, but when we've seen this team countless times not do it, it felt good to really take advantage of those. And that was the key, especially early. I know we scored 38 points in that first half, but like I said, our half court offense was pretty bad for most of that first half, but you were able to get some turnovers, get Colin a couple, run out dunks, get the Jasper lob to Otega, all those little things where you were able to steal some points in a game where you were struggling to create half court offense.
Yeah, and when you are struggling to create half court offense, forcing those turnovers are your best friend. Like that's a way to
Absolutely.
get everybody going. Like in general, like do we think Colin Chandler has that confidence if he doesn't have those 2 early dunks and those 2 early runouts? Like that's just something that you don't even really think about.
Yeah,
In
it felt like
general.
it got him going for sure.
Yeah, that's something that obviously we're not going to be able to quantify how that changed the game or if it did. But something as simple as that, getting Colin's confidence going, even Jasper's, like for him to be able to get a steal, get on the run out, make an assist there for
Didn't force
Otega.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Even something as simple as that. Jasper didn't play much in this game, 6 minutes, only had the point off the free throw. But even something as simple as that, like being of some impact coming into the game and not an impact for Missouri, an impact for Kentucky. Because I know Jake would be sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, he was very impactful today for Missouri." No, Jake, calm
No.
down. Calm
Hey,
down. We're
I
not
didn't
there
say
yet.
easy. I didn't say it, man.
You were thinking it. I
No.
saw it.
I think this was another game, not to switch topics too much, but I think it was another game where Pope kind of handled the lineup, I think, a lot better. You weren't BG, while we talked about that he played okay, like, he still played less than 10 minutes. You played Malachi a lot. I thought Malachi was playing really well outside of, some of the fouls. I don't know what we got to do to keep the guy out of foul trouble, but I mean, his foot, we were talking about him hitting that freshman wall. I know his like stats don't go crazy or, something that like really pops out, but I thought he had a few really good moves where his footwork looked a lot better and, he looked more comfortable and kind of back to that Malachi we saw a month ago. But overall, again, just find ways to win. Every game's going to be played a little different. You're going to have to score some points tomorrow to win. Just keep finding different ways and pushing different buttons and keep stacking these wins and get ready for next week.
Absolutely. And I do love the fact that after how well Brandon Garrison played yesterday, even though his shot wasn't falling, he was still a force in the game. And he had 4 fouls in 9 minutes, which is crazy. I don't even know
He
how you
got
do it.
away with
That's
a pretty egregious goaltending too.
yeah. I mean, hey, they gave him a block for it. He ends up getting credit for 4 blocks in this game, so probably 3 in the goaltending. But we're we're not going to go and tell the refs that. I don't
No,
need them,
I,
changing that. But
I understood Dennis Gates'
I,
frustration right there.
I can definitely say we both understand why he was so frustrated. But I kind of just want to talk about the bigs protecting the rim in this game.
Yep.
4 blocks from BG, 3 from Malachi, and 2 from Mo Diabate. And this is a game, and I love what Mo brings. This is a game I don't know why he played 20 minutes. He was rebounding the ball well. Outside of that, I'm not sure the value he was adding. He was protecting the rim well. If I was going to pick a point of what I didn't understand in this game, that would probably be it. Why he was playing 20 minutes. That's just me looking for
Yeah.
something, though. And I'm
No,
not,
and
because I just want to say, and again, you obviously know where I'm going to go with this. And I heard somebody else on another show try to say they were the president of the Andrea Yelovich fan club. And I just got to call complete and utter bullshit on that. Like, come on. What are we doing here? It's ridiculous. If there's a president of that fan club, Jake, I've been pulling that cart
you
for
you have
months.
you
For
you've
months.
you've wanted to get it going. I will say, like, I am kind of with you. Like, this was we talked about the matchup for Mo, like trying to guard Mark Mitchell. It just unfortunately wasn't the best matchup for him. But man, I tell you what, there's one thing about Diabate, and it's kind of what you hear from Jimmy Dykes throughout the course of the game, and I know he talks about how much he loves him, but the guy does find ways just to make winning plays at times where it feels like you gotta have it. And we talk about how we don't love him having the ball offensively a ton, but like even today, man, there were moments where it felt like you kind of needed a bucket, and Diabate put his head down and went and found it. And I know he only went 3 of 5 from the floor, but I think that's kind of the perfect stat line for him. He's not forcing too much. He's
Yeah.
not, pulling a three like you saw against LSU. He's getting around the rim and finding a way to finish. That one where he kind of reversed it and had a nice little reverse layup,
Mm-hmm.
like that was huge. But like the guy does find ways to just make winning plays, and whether it's getting a rebound or was it the Tennessee game where he grabbed the rebound on the free throw,
Yeah.
like he finds ways to just make those little gritty plays that help you win a basketball game. And man, the flip I've had on him and Denzel Aberdeen, like it needs to be studied. I don't know if there's a psychiatrist in the world that can understand my brain when it comes to
Oh, there's not.
the
Trust me.
flip I
I've seen
had
a lot of what goes on in that brain. Nobody knows what's going there.
there, like the flip between what I was screaming and cussing and yelling at earlier in the year between Denzel and Diabate to they're becoming two of my favorite players on this team, man, and it's because of the growth that they had, and also just down the stretch, they're two guys that it feels like whether it's Denzel getting to the lane for a layup or making a big three at a big time, or Mo getting a rebound or an and one at a crucial time, like it always kind of happens.
One thing I'd like to say, and that's I wish Mo would play with the composure that he had when he got the ball with 3 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah, that was he
It
didn't.
at all times, because
Yeah,
there's at least, what would you say, 5 or 6 times a game where he's just laying on the floor and the ball is just flying somewhere else, and it's either a
well,
turnover or we somehow grab the ball. Like in this one, luckily it didn't hurt you too much. You only end up having 2 turnovers, but a lot of those, and I agree to an extent of what you said. He does seem to make a lot of like winning plays. You mentioned to the Tennessee game grabbing the offensive rebound. I mean, he had like 4 offensive rebounds down the stretch of that game,
yep,
and 2 of them were on free throws. He also in this game put you in a severe hole with how he was playing in the early part of that second half. Like when they went on their giant run, a large part of it was because of Muhammad Diabate, and it's really evident in the plus minus in this one. He was minus 10 for the game, and I
yep.
thought a lot of times we've mentioned plus minus can not really have any relevance to the game a lot of times. I thought this one, it really told a story. he ended up coming back from that a little bit at the end of the game by making some of those, game-winning plays that you mentioned. Just that early part of the second half where we refused to play Yelovich and even Brandon Garrison there for a while in that early part of the second half, he was just, and I texted you, he was just unplayable there. And I don't know if it's frustrated or if I'm kind of concerned with the leash that he had because he was getting scored on the defensive side of the ball. He was making bad offensive plays. I love the energy that he plays with. I just want that composure that he had with the shot clock running down with 3 seconds left. If we could find a way to kind of channel and harness that into both of them, I think you have a hell of a player.
Yep.
But what you got from Muhammad early in the game was a very, very bad player that was a reason you were about to lose the game, and then he just turned the switch and then helped you end up winning it. We just can't have such high variance.
One thing, kind of back to the leash, and one thing I would like to see Pope either kind of talk about, but also, change going forward. When somebody's in one of those spells, right? Like, because I am with you, like Diabate was really bad over that stretch. You don't have to like pull them out and then not ever let them see the floor again, right? Like, I think even in
It's
that
one of
instance,
two ways. He either lets them play through it or they never see the floor again, and
yeah.
there's no in between.
But like, I think like even in that moment, if after a little bit of that stretch, if you just pulled Diabate even for just 2 minutes and just sat him down and,
Just let him collect his thoughts for 2 minutes.
Exactly. Like, I think you could have went probably right back to him just a few minutes later. And I do think there are times that, to your point, Pope knows like, all right, this guy I'm going to need down the stretch. So I'm almost just going to kind of ride this out right now when it's like, yeah, you can still have him down the stretch. Let's just get him out of this particular situation. Let's, let Jason Hart or whoever on the bench kind of talk to him and, make him see whatever we're trying to make him see. But yeah, I don't think you have to continue to leave him out there in that situation, especially with how well Yelovich was playing in this one. I've gone back and forth with you and said like a lot of these times the reason Yelovich isn't getting more minutes is, I think he should play the 5, but whatever, Pope's not going to do it. There's moments where you can't take Diabate off the floor or Yelovich is getting scored on, but like you said, like Diabate was getting obviously torched on the defensive side, and I thought Yelovich was playing really well. I thought it was a good game from him. The 3-point shot, I don't really understand what's going on with that, but outside
It's
of that,
I don't. Especially, it looked good yesterday in the same arena. None of them were close.
no.
Not a single one of them were
And
close. But I kind of want
there were
to.
a couple, and like 2 of them were like wide open.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that's not something. He doesn't seem like a guy who would let a 0 for 3 shooting night
I don't think
impact
so.
his confidence for going forward. And I really hope that's not something that happens for tomorrow because I think you're going to need him stretching the floor against Florida and Chinaloo and Condon and Howe to be able to open up driving lanes for Otega and those guys if you're going to win tomorrow. But I just wanted to talk about the defensive side of what Yelovich brought to you in this game. And I'm not going to say he was a lockdown threat defensively in this game. But a lot of those makes that Mitchell had in the first half, that was when he threw one off when he was at a 45-degree angle and then launched it off the backboard and just happened to go in. Mitchell had 9 points at halftime. And through the first 5 minutes before we know when Yelovich is coming out. He's going to start the second half and he's getting to that under 16 timeout. Whenever that is, he's coming out. Doesn't matter what he does. He could have 35 points in that 4 minutes. He's coming out at that under 16. And at that under 16, that was that stat that I had given you where he'd had 12 points on 12 field goals attempted. I'll sign up for that.
Yeah.
And especially when that's their best player and their best offensive threat. So to see that they were so hesitant to go back to that when it worked so well in the first half, it's concerning for me because Yelovich was also crashing the boards heavily in this game.
He was.
I mean, he was giving you more than just offense. He had 6 rebounds in 18 minutes.
I think it was probably his best game where he was strong with the basketball, whether it was grabbing
Mm-hmm.
rebounds and then not letting people take it from him. There were a couple times he got the ball down low and even scored. Like, I think this was the game where he looked the most comfortable with the ball, and him, and I'll even say Malachi to an extent. Like, they weren't just kind of getting the ball ripped away like we've seen
Mm-hmm.
countless times. And that's one positive going into tomorrow, because that's obviously
Yeah.
Florida's bread and butter, and that's kind of the thing we talked about, like they've struggled with the most. But yeah, I thought it was for whatever reason, I don't know why in this game it would look so much different than what we've seen earlier in the year. But yeah, I thought he just looked really comfortable and was playing stronger than we've seen.
And especially when you got to Phillips having that fourth foul there early in the second half,
Yep.
and they were running out that 7-footer. Why was he not being put in at each time? And when he got that fourth foul, Jake, I had typed it up ready to go, and I was like, FFS, why is Yelovich not on the floor? And then as soon as I was about to hit send, I saw him checking in. I was like, all right, I don't have to send this. I was so ready to fire it off to you. But I do love the physicality that he played with in this game. I'm really hoping it translates to Florida, because we're obviously going to need it. Cam Williams, only guy we really haven't talked about, might be the quietest 13 minutes of action I think I've seen
Yeah.
from anybody. Like, when I look back at the box score and just check the minutes log, I was just thinking I was going to see like 7 or 8.
Yep.
I really don't remember him being on the floor for 13 minutes. And I want to talk about the logo 3 that he shot.
Dude, how that ball
The
died and went from that
how
deep
that
is
how that went in, I have no idea. I will take the shooter's role on that for Cam Williams, because that was he deserves some good luck. Rushing
man,
back from a broken foot, I have no idea how that went in.
I mean, I understand, like, shooters roll, it bounces off the rim way up
I
in the
don't know
air
what.
and falls in. But, like, from the logo to get the ball to pretty much just die on the back
It
iron,
was
like,
bad.
that was insane. Yeah, I was wondering, like, how much was Cam going to play in this game? And obviously,
Mm.
Kentucky marked him a game time decision. And I think that was something me and you kind of talked about after LSU is, the guy hasn't played basketball in 2 months and really just started running. And Pope admitted that he hasn't even really had a full practice. And, like, it would have been completely understandable if after 17 minutes they either didn't want him to play or he didn't feel like he could. But I mean, it was like under 9 minutes in the first half before he even checked in. So I wasn't really expecting a whole lot from him. But, big three. I am kind of with you. He was quiet out there, but it did, like, I kind of felt a little different about it because I didn't notice him a ton, like, during gameplay, but I felt like every time there was a break in the action or something, like, I would look and there's Cam Williams walking down the floor or whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think this was just another game for him where you just kind of continue just to get him back in the flow of basketball. And even if, the foot's bothering him tomorrow and you either don't want him to play or he plays, like, very seldom, like, I think just make sure. I mean, we obviously want to win tomorrow and we want to make it to the weekend of the SEC tournament, but I think the most important thing is just having Cam comfortable and that foot healthy enough to where when he does have, a week off or 6 5 days, however many, depending on how long you play here, like, to where that foot's going to be ready to go there and ready for the big push.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because when I was going back, I was thinking, 7, 8 minutes. Hopefully, that's not too much, and he's going to be good to go for Florida. But looking back, having 13, you're talking about 30 minutes that he's played over the past 2 games, and how is obviously it didn't respond terrific, or he wouldn't have been a game time decision today. So there's obviously a
Yep.
little bit of soreness in there. So what are you able to get from him minutes wise against Florida? Is it something to where we just listed him as a game time decision just because, or was it truly a game time decision? We didn't know he was going to play. Based on like how you said, the fact that he didn't check in until there was 9 minutes left in the first half, I'm assuming that was truly a game time decision, and I'm hoping whatever our training staff can do to get him rested and rehabbed and iced, whatever he's got to do, he's getting it done before Florida, because having that versatile wing to be able to potentially switch off on a guy like Howe or Condon to still offer you that size, and even if it's not shot blocking ability, shot contesting ability, I think is huge. And a little bit of what I think he added for you in this game is just Otega didn't have to play 39 minutes.
Yep.
You were able to get him a couple more breaks, only played and I say only played 35 minutes. But you're able to just find him a little bit of extra breathing room, keep him a little bit, fresher down the stretch. And that's something Pope's alluded to, and you and I have both kind of like scoffed at it. Like, this guy can play more if we need him to. But I think it made a difference down the stretch in this one. Otega was clearly better in the second half. He was more fresh and ready to go. Hopefully that's something that we can get done on Florida.
Yeah. And I think, too, like, honestly, like, we don't like to talk about stuff like this because, we are Kentucky and, like, we expect to win all of these games. But I think objectively speaking, like, looking at this game today is more important than the game tomorrow. Like, winning tomorrow would be awesome, and it would be like this huge feel good, especially with what we've seen with this team over the course of the season. But like this one, you have essentially solidified yourself as either like a 6 or a 7 seed. You beat a team that you're better than, and like just really you kind of needed this one. And I think it felt like the staff and Cam probably realized how important today's game was. And if it comes out that like that foot's swollen or whatever it is, and they decide like, hey, we want
Well,
to get him
don't say the word
extra.
swollen. If it's swollen, that's a couple months. You're out,
Yeah.
man. We don't
Well,
need swelling.
but like I just think if I hope he can play tomorrow, and you have a chance to go knock off Florida. But like if you're telling me like it was either he was going to completely shut down today and then play tomorrow, like I think I'd rather have had him out there today just because of how important this game felt.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I think that obviously when you're talking about a tournament, you want him for the very next game, just because you don't know if you're making it to the
Absolutely.
next game if you don't win this one. But I think either win was a seed line win at this point. So I think if you lost to Florida or if you lost to Missouri, you could potentially be an 8. You're probably still a 7, but potentially an 8. And I think right now you're firmly a 7 seed. But if you beat Florida, you're firmly a 6.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
I
think
think
you
I
could be
think
a
both of
6
them are.
even without, but I
Yeah, I
agree.
mean, I think just both of them are seed line games, and that's kind of where you were at in this part of the season, especially with Louisville losing to Miami, who was firmly on that 6 seed line. That opens the door here for the Cats to be able to hopefully knock off Florida. Jake, let's put this Missouri game to rest. We've won it. We've moved past Thursday. We're now playing on Friday. Third time's the charm is what I've been told.
I mean, do you know the last time we lost to Florida 3 times in a season?
I actually don't. When was it? Halfway?
2014.
Sign me up.
So,
I guess we'll lose
I,
tomorrow. That's
I
fine. I guess we'll lose if that's the ending I get. I guess we'll lose.
win or lose, I now have a spin zone, right? If we win, I'm going to be talking about, man, we're back and all this and that. If we lose, 2014, man. But no, I mean, Florida's obviously really good. They're probably one of the 3 best teams in the country right now. Like we talked about a week ago before this game, I still think Kentucky matches up with them probably as well as any team that's not a top 5 team in the country. What they have done to every other team in the SEC over the course of the last 6 weeks, really, since they lost that Auburn game, is absurd. They're beating everybody by 20 plus, including Alabama and everybody else. And Kentucky, outside of a couple minute stretches in each game, has played right there with them. Now, obviously, you can't just erase those 2-minute stretches where they go on 13-0 runs. Like, I understand that. But Kentucky has played them as well as anybody in the country. And I think tomorrow, I think it all comes down to what does this team have going on a third game in 3 days, right? Whereas Florida's going to be obviously very well rested. That's really kind of what I think the difference will be. I think Kentucky could probably play really well, and towards the end of it, they just kind of run out of gas. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But again, man, like we've seen teams do this, whether it was UConn in the Kemba year or, NC State a couple years ago playing their way into the tournament. Like, there's teams that can play 5 games in 5 days and beat the number 1 team in the conference on the way in their first game. So I think Kentucky has a legitimate chance. Now, am I going to pick them? I don't know. We'll see how I feel in 5 minutes when you ask me.
So what you're telling me is I got about 5 minutes to convince you. Is what you're telling me here.
I feel good. Like, me and you already talked. The money line of plus 470. Like, I think that's good value. Like, should Kentucky be favored? Absolutely not. But like, when you're gambling, you're constantly just looking for value, and I think like there is some value there. I think it'll be a close game, and then again, it just down the stretch. Will Kentucky have enough in the tank to make those plays like we saw them make today, or will Florida be able to kind of create some separation and essentially put it away? But yeah, you got now 4 minutes here to convince me and give me the spiel, because you were the one that told us if they beat LSU after picking a loss to LSU, this team will be playing on Saturday. So go ahead and tell me how this team's going to play on Saturday.
Well, Jake, first off, I told you how the weekend was going to happen. I told you we were going through a little spell there where I just had to pick the opposite of what you picked.
It's true.
Because we just weren't working. So I had to do the old fade tactic on Wednesday.
Sure.
You know this. You know this.
Whatever. Yeah.
You know this. Don't try and,
You thought we were losing. It's okay. I mean,
don't push this to Big Blue Nation in any other way. You know I had the fade tactic going. We talked about it off air. You knew this.
Yeah, sure.
But I did tell you, when they win that game on Wednesday, they will be playing on Saturday. And that, of course, means that they're going to be beating Florida on Friday. Listen to Todd Golden talk right now. Listen to him speak on his team. This guy is drinking the Kool-Aid more than anybody I've ever seen on his own team. I don't think Todd Golden thinks they can be beat. I really don't. I think that's where he thinks this team is. He saw how they played early in the year. He mentioned, the tough schedule they had non-conference and how they just lost a bunch of those early season games. Let's not forget, you did lose to Auburn as well. There are some bad losses mixed in there. And I don't think that we've played great either of the 2 times that we've played Florida. I really don't. Now, there's been spots in there where we've looked really good. There's been spots in there where we've looked terrible. It's hard for me to say that I can't see Kentucky going down 13-0 again from the start, because you probably could. And if you do, the game's over. You just can't do that against a good team. But even in the Field of 68 interview that Otega had after the game, he mentioned that first thing. First thing he mentioned, he's like, we just can't let them get out to an early start like that. And he talked about how, after that, we're playing neck and neck with them. We're beating them. We're, controlling the game a lot of these times. But you just can't have one of those monster runs, is really what it comes down to. And I think this team, and it sounds crazy after barely beating LSU, barely beating Missouri, a team that's not going to make the tournament and a team that's firmly, last 4 in as of last with the loss to Kentucky. Sounds crazy to say this after winning those 2 games that you feel confident that you're going to beat a potential 1 seed. I just think Kentucky's going to win this game. It's something I told you on Wednesday. If they get there, they're going to win it. Somebody's going to get hot. Colin Chandler hasn't played good in any of the two Florida matchups that they've had so far. That's not true, actually. He went 5 of 7. What am I talking about?
The
But
first one, yeah.
yeah, the first one he went 5 of 7.
Denzel hasn't played good in either. It'd be
Denzel
nice to
hasn't.
see him.
And then if you remember both of the first halves, that first half there at Florida, Otega was brutal. Now Otega had the game of his life last time against Florida. So can we find the middle ground there, and can you get these guards to score 65? And that's a lot to ask. You're asking them to all score over 20.
Yeah.
Get them to score 65 in this game. These bigs have been performing. Not at a crazy level, but they've been giving you enough to win games. Early in the season, we were talking about they're just not giving you enough even with these guards playing at an elite level. Right now they are. You're getting spot minutes from Yelovich. You're getting those hustle plays from Muhammad Diabate. Brandon Garrison is showing up on the defensive side of the ball. First time we've said that in a long time. Malachi Moreno is still that constant presence around the rim, and I'm hoping he's not going to smoke a layup because maybe 2 points is the difference in this game. I feel irrationally confident. And I don't know if it's 2 wins in 2 days speaking, but I did say this on Monday as well. So I don't know, Jake. Hopefully I talked you into it. I know I can talk you into a money line bet. That's for sure.
That's happening. I already said it. I like the value. A few things. One, you're right. Like, we used to talk about swaggy Cal. Man, there's nobody feeling themselves more than Todd Golden right now. I said this about the game last Saturday, so I'm going to say it again. Like, Florida is due for a come-down game. To your point, everything Golden's saying, like, at some point, like, that, those guards and their three-point shooting have to kind of come back to earth where they were earlier in SEC play. The other thing we've talked about, obviously, the guards need to get 60 if he plays. I think you just need to find, if you can get 65 between those three and Cam, like between those four, if they can go out there and get just 65, you're feeling, really good. And that's another threat that you haven't had in any of the Florida games. All right. You ready for a score?
I'm ready. Just keep in mind, I do want to say this. Cam has not played in either one of these matchups. I think he can't.
Yeah, well, I said that 10 seconds ago, but thank you for
I'm aware you did. I want to reinforce it.
All right.
I want to reinforce it because this guy is like.
I thought you were saying that like you had just discovered something. Like, I want to break news to BBN here.
No, this guy's been out since January 21st. I think we all know this, Jake. We've talked about this multiple times. I just want to reinforce how important Cam Williams was to this team before the injury. And to not have him in both of these games, maybe even if he's just one of those guys that comes in and hits a 3 to stop a 12-0 run, to kind of nix that in the bud, even if it's something as simple as that, or to get into a passing lane with that length that he has. Something as simple as that can change the trajectory of a game like this. And who knows, maybe last Saturday, if he's out there to start the game, he can find a way to knock down a 3 and you're not down 13-0 to start. Yeah. That's what I want to reiterate, Jake. I heard you. I'm listening. Yeah. I heard you.
Well, you actually just reminded me of another point I was going to make, and it's that, like, Florida is going to go on a run in this game because it's what they do. Yeah, I mean, Florida's going to go on a run in this game, and that's what they do. They do it to everybody, but it's just figuring out a way to survive it, or taking a 13-0 run in 2.5 minutes and finding a way to hold that to an 8-0 run, or even maybe talking crazy, maybe even you're up 4 or 5 when they go on their run, and you're still in the game. But also, I want Pope to have the quickest trigger finger when it comes to timeout in this game. Like, the second it looks like they're getting on one of those runs and it's 6-0, or
I think anytime it gets to like a 3-possession run where it gets anything to where they've scored 7 consecutive points and you haven't been able to score a bucket, I think there's got to be a timeout called.
There's going to be times where you're just going to feel it, and just right away, the quickest
can't take them with you, man.
Quickest timeout trigger you've ever had in your life, because you got to do something to make sure that those things don't bubble into a 13-0, 15-0, like something where it just kind of puts the game away. And, it's one thing I do worry. While I completely agree with Otega's comments, the one thing that does worry me, like if Florida gets up early in this game, will these guys just be like, we can't do it. We know we've done
We've
it
won 2
twice
games.
now.
We can go home and get some rest.
Well, and we've known, we battled our asses off both games after getting down, and like Florida's just, they're not Tennessee. They're too good to overcome those deficits. So I would be a little concerned that if you do fall behind, I could see them almost thinking it's too much to overcome. But with all that said, I told you I liked the value. I told you had 5 minutes to talk me into it. I don't know if I needed a lot of talking into it.
I know you didn't.
I'm ready to go over the ledge. I was at the ledge. I was looking down. I had 1 foot dangling.
I pushed
You gave me just a little nudge. I'll go Cats 88, Florida 84. I think it's going to be a fun one. I made sure take a half day tomorrow. No more of this nonsense of watching on my phone with headphones in at the office, not able to scream, not able to yell. We're going to go to the bar. We're going to watch the game. I'm going to have some beverages, and I just think it's going to be a perfect Friday afternoon, and it's just we're going to be walking out of there tomorrow on air, and we're going to be, I said today, I text you, people are whispering, just real quiet whispers around
very subtly.
The Cats are back. And if they win tomorrow, those whispers are becoming screams. So,
do you remember my response to your message that you sent me?
So yeah, we're back in the SEC.
I just said we are back. And that it starts with a win on Friday. And it'll carry over to beating whoever wins between Tennessee and Vandy. Whoever wins that game, you're beating them. And then it's Sunday, and you're talking about facing either probably Arkansas or Alabama. I don't feel as good about that one. But let's not talk about that yet. Let's go ahead and beat Florida. You mentioned you got the Cats winning 88-84. And I do want to keep in mind, this is a 11.5 point spread. Florida's favored. So we're going tremendously on the opposite side here. I'm going to say the Cats are right around you. Not perfect, almost a perfect pick. I probably should have just written mine down before you said something. That way I had it. I'm going to say 87-81. I'm going to say free throws kind of widen the gap a little bit later. Get a 6-point win for the Cats, and you're feeling great. Broadway's going crazy down in Nashville. I might head straight there after this game if that's how it works. I'm supposed to be going to the gym after the game.
You talk about a party. 3:30 on Friday in Nashville. If we win, will be a party.
People are talking, Jake, that you might have me back if Kentucky wins this game tomorrow. There are people talking, but Big Blue Nation, that is how we are going to wrap up this episode. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And if you enjoy this content, please continue to stick around with us as we go through the rest of the SEC tournament and March Madness. Jake, go Cats. It's tired of losing to Florida. Let's go ahead and get this win and go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.